Hi everyone, I've created this exam review video to help you prepare for the exam. I had a student send me an email the other day saying it was her first online course and that maneuvering the site and finding the certain tools were not easily accessible, having not had an exam or an online course like this before. And I decided to create this video because I don't want that to be the same case with taking an exam. The exam is 60 minutes in length with a 5-minute grace period, so I don't think you should spend any of that time trying to figure out the exam. I want you to have studied and prepared for the exam so that you can do what you're supposed to be doing at that time. Take the exam. So in this video, I'm going to show you where I have two useful tools set up, as well as go over a couple of this questions that I have prepared. So you go to Content, and I created Exam Study Guide folder here under the table of content, and you will then click on Exam Study Guide 1. So you'll see in the Exam Study Guide there are a list of terms and themes. This is what you'll want to do. This is a Microsoft Word document, so you can download it, you can type on it, use it as a study guide to help you prepare, but be able to understand, the who or what these things are, where or when they're significant. Manifest Destiny definitely has a time period significance. Don't worry about exact dates. This is not a history class, but I would want you to be able to verify that Manifest Destiny was a mid-19th century idea. It developed in the 1840s and was carried on through really early 20th century and can even be heard in some political rhetoric today at times. So this idea, these terms, you should be able to know who or what they are. The themes are a little more challenging. Games of Southern Colonies, okay, well, you'll need to know several of those games. Games in colonial New England, 19th century modernity and sport, that was possibly a theme on one of the slideshow presentations in the early American sport lecture. So these are the things that you will want to go over. Now the layout of the exam is set up this way. Part 1, multiple choice, true, false, and fill in the blank questions. There are 50 points here. Don't worry, there are not 50 questions. I believe there are 28 questions, 20 or 29 questions that are multiple choice, true, false, and I list here fill in the blank, but really these are just questions that will ask you to provide a list. For example, you may see ableist ideology on this study guide here. I should have this ready. I do. So you'd go back to this slide in the video and the PowerPoint presentation and know the definition here. But the question might say list 3 examples of an ableist ideology that lead to the discrimination against people who are not able-bodied or who are not fully able-bodied. Well, those 3 listing ideas or themes or topics would be: first, that people can be classified as normal or disabled. Well, if you believe that, then that leads to a discrimination against someone who is not able-bodied. Disabled people are inferior to normal people. Well, again, hopefully we don't believe that in society, but there are people who do, and that leads to discrimination or different treatment of people who are not able-bodied. So the question that asked, please list examples of an ableist ideology that lead to the discrimination of non-able-bodied persons or disabled people, and you would pull from this list here. It doesn't have to be word for word, can be summarized, but that's an example of a listing idea that a listing question that I will have. So because you will have some questions that require you to list these items, you will then see that won't lead to 50 questions here. Another one that you might be asked, you were asked this on one of your quizzes or I think Dropbox activities. You were asked to list your social world, cultural characteristics of your social world. Well, some of you did very well, and I added that, well, thinking a little further about this, looking possibly at the exam, you might be asked a question about sports and the cultural characteristics of the social world of sport. Maybe you might be asked a question to List the cultural characteristics of the social world of a football team versus the social world of a women's volleyball team, for example. And those are the type of listing questions that you will have to respond to. So again, that won't lead to 50 questions. That'll lead to 50 points made up of some 20-some questions. The multiple choice and true false should go rather quickly, and thus I would say don't spend any more than 25, maybe 30 minutes at most in this first part. And the second part, 30 minutes, 15 minutes per question. That should be enough because these are short essay responses, not lengthy essays. So 2 to 3 paragraphs should be able to clearly answer the question, as well as give you the opportunity to provide examples from the reading or PowerPoint lectures. So please do not just answer the question with a general response about the movie or about one of the exam review sheet questions. An opinion response will earn maybe 10 of 25 points. That opinion supported with examples from reading, examples from the PowerPoint presentations, pulling in maybe some of these terms or other terms that aren't listed here that we covered in the class would be a great way to get the full 25 points per question. So there are 2 short essay questions. One will come from those exam review sheets at the end of the chapters that you read, and actually that question will actually be word for word from one of those. And then the other will be a question from either More Than a Game or the movie Mind Game. So if you have not watched both of those, it is important that you do. The questions won't be very specific about each one, but rather more general, allowing you to bring in examples from the movie as well as make the connection with class material. So hopefully that answers your question, or your questions that you may have about the exam. But if that doesn't, I've created, in the communications section of our course, go to the discussions, and in the discussion boards I created a forum. Scroll down, exam review questions. This is an opportunity for you to ask me a question and I will respond. I'm going to be looking at this throughout the day tomorrow, Thursday, and up until 5 o'clock on Friday. This is an opportunity for you to ask a question and have your classmates see that question, because maybe 10, 15, or even all 60 of you have that same question. It's going to help me from responding to 60 students or 50 or 60 emails. Instead, I will go to these questions that you create in this forum and respond to them. Now, what you will have to do is click on exam 1 and begin a thread. So maybe your question that you have is, what happens if I go beyond the exam time limit? Well, I'll answer that question in a moment, but what I want you to do is you'll post your question here, and then I'll have a chance to respond. Now, once you've asked that question, please do not ask another question in that same forum or in that same folder, that same exam question thread. And other students, please don't ask questions to me in that. Once I've responded to the question, I'm not going to go back to that folder, but the folder will be open for students to maybe discuss a little further about this. The question might have been about gender ideology, and I'll give my response, but you may have more time and you want to discuss this with your peers and provide examples. Then this can become an exam review session per question for each student. So again, I will not go back to the folder once I've answered the question. If you have additional questions, start a new thread. That's fine. There can be 40 or 50 threads. I'll answer each one of those, but this will benefit the students in the class who may have the same question. It might provide an answer to a question a student did not know they were going to have until maybe they took the exam. And lastly, it's going to prevent me from having to respond to many, many emails with regard to the same question or a very similar question. So then what you would do is click post and I would respond. Now, to answer this question, there is a penalty for going beyond the 60-minute time limit. There's a 5-minute grace period window I've built into this. So once you go to 65 minutes, then it's flagged late. No penalty, but if you go 5 minutes beyond the grace period, then there will be a 5-point penalty. So if you take 71 minutes, you will have a 5-point penalty. It's not a point per minute, but once you hit 70, 75, 80, they're going to be 5-point penalties. So 80, if you go beyond 80 minutes, that will take you to 15 point penalty. So make sure that you do the exam in the time that is provided. But again, there will be a little bit of a grace period window for you. So hopefully this answers your questions. I'm going to delete this one. And I hope this tutorial, if you would call it that, will you'll find this helpful in preparing for the exam. I'll do the same thing for exam 2, and maybe if there's anything along the way that I need to discuss, possibly the paper assignment, etc. So if you have any questions outside of this exam that are with regards to the course, please feel free to send me an email. It might be something that would help for me to once again respond to the entire class. Thanks, and good luck on your exam 1.